Edward, hi, how are you
Hello.
doing? It's very exciting to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. So tell me, what have you been up to in the weeks since you showed your collection?
Oh, it's been quite busy.
Yeah.
Straight off, we started with sales in London the day after the show, then sales in Paris. London, I didn't have to be there because I went to a wedding in Anglesey the day after.
Very nice.
Actually, on the evening of the show.
Did you wear a piece from the collection?
I thought about it, but I didn't think the bride would be over the moon if I did that.
You were definitely upstage.
Yeah.
So let's get started.
Yes.
I want to talk through your references.
Okay.
And talk a little bit about where you began. Mm-hmm. So just starting with the mood board that you sent me. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about where you think the imagery came in first.
I mean, I knew I wanted to do something about quite large volumes. So I was looking a lot at mantua skirts, but also this sort of deflated 80s volumes, quite Armani, that early Armani where it's like really that dropped shoulder. I really like wide shoulders, but I also like a really sloping shoulder. And I was trying to find a way to bring those two things together. And that sort of deflated 80s volume I found really interesting.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me about these images.
So here's like a perfect example of that type of volume that I'm talking about. Yeah, this like Julia Roberts-y, wide.
Powerful.
And well, power was something that I was really interested in, and how width has been used to portray power in different cultures and at different times.
And also in gender.
Yes, exactly.
Played a big part in the collection.
Exactly.
So talk to me a bit about that.
Well, that role of width in gender through those mantua skirts, like that massive emphasis of the hips, counterplayed with that 80s power suit, adapting the masculine width, and the interplay of those two together was quite interesting.
It's interesting to me that you keep referencing the 80s, because I think when you look at the collection, the 80s maybe isn't the era you'd naturally gravitate to. I think Victorian and Elizabethan and a lot more, ancient eras came to mind.
I grew up in the 80s, so maybe my remembering of it is quite different to like fashion 80s.
Sure.
But I think it's also that it was also kind of memories of like your mum's friends in the early 90s who were still dressing like they were in the 80s. And I think those sorts of things do stick subconsciously in your head, and that like those huge shoulders that people had. That was so, and then you see that slip of a shoulder pad sort of wandering down their blouse. But I think there were quite a lot of 80s references, but more through my subconscious referencing than going, here's like a puffball skirt.
Sure. Okay, well, let's have a look at some of the looks. You can show me where these 80s references exactly are. Okay, let's start at the top here. So this is the order that the collection was shown in. And tell me, when you were designing the collection, did you start with that first look? Did you think this is the one that I want to start with, or?
No, that comes later. When I'm designing, I have like an idea of an outfit, and it's kind of what I'm thinking, and then that evolves and that informs the shapes of the other pieces. But then when my stylist Julian comes in, he just like rips that all apart and goes, no, let's do it like this. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a really nice look. He's like, well, this is better. And he's right. But so that's why he's there.
What's that look that you start with? Is it a piece?
It was the skirts, because I knew I wanted to do it.
Let's see, so not this.
Yes.
That really is the piece, isn't it?
That was the shape that I really wanted. And I'd always wanted to do it, and I'd held back. I'm like, oh, it's not commercial. I shouldn't do it. People won't get it. And then I thought, I don't care. I'm just going to do it anyway because I want to. And I knew this was going to be a show. We'd said after the last presentation, right, now's the time. We want to move forward. And I knew in movement, this massive, wide volume, like sweeping down, would be so great. And I just had to do it. So it was really, everything was based around that from the beginning. And then that led me on to other references that led into other shapes and different proportioning.
But this came sort of, in the middle of the show thing. So maybe it feels like, it built. up on.
Yeah, maybe it went from one direction and
Yeah.
then the other and sort of spread out.
And you mentioned Julian, who does the styling. The thing that I really loved about this look was the way that you had, the corset, which was so integral into the collection, as well as that big crinoline.
Yes.
But the piece that really pulls it all together is this jacket slid off the shirt. Is that your 80s reference?
For me, yes.
Okay. And talk to me a little bit about the jewellery here.
The jewellery was based on a mask I saw in Bali about 6 or 7 years ago. It was this tiny little mask. So I have some friends who live in Bali and who took it off, and they're all handmade and they sculpted everything, and it was really beautifully done in Bali by these local artisans.
I can't really see, but is that the way that the necklace has been?
Yeah, they're all masks on rings.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's like these little interconnecting circles, but they're about 2.5 centimeters deep, so the face is totally in relief. It was really interesting. I was lucky enough to be there when they started carving, and it was really interesting to see this wax resist process being done.
Are you a big traveller? Do you travel a lot?
I've been lucky with in my consultancy work, it's allowed me to travel a lot, predominantly in Asia. I mean, I've only been to the States twice, and for 24 hours each time. So I think that's why a lot of Asian influences come into my work, is because that's where I've spent time.
I mean, I ask because, your collection is so obviously very global, and the references, a lot of Asian references.
Yeah, always. And it's never a conscious thing. It's just, these are things that I find beautiful. And I think everyone's influenced by the things that are around them. So if you are lucky enough to be able to travel, you're seeing these things probably for the first time and going, oh, I've got to do something with this.
So talk to me a little bit then about, the kimonos and these patterns that come up, 'cause these are really incredible. Let's have a look. Specifically, as the collection continues, the fabrics and stuff become much more inspired by.
Yeah. I wanted it to grow in darkness and in richness. That was really important. And the kimono shapes are from uchikake wedding kimonos. So they're worn by the bride on her wedding day. They're this amazing couture thing. And I've worked with a lot of kimono makers in Kyoto, so I understand the process. But it's such a long process and it's so involved, there was no way that I could feasibly do anything. But I wanted to do something in a Western weaving tradition that felt similar to those Japanese traditional techniques, but really taking into the ultimate Japanese feminine garment. And I deliberately put one on a man at the end to go, ooh, gender play.
With glitter nipples.
With glitter nipples.
Very naughty.
They were we didn't tell Briuk that he was going to be.
You didn't?
No, not until right to the last moment. I checked with him before. I was like, are you all right to wear a massive skirt? He was like, yeah. Are you all right to wear a kimono? Yeah. What about a corset? He's like, oh, I really want a corset. I was like, on the day, I was like, so, Briu, I'm going to put glitter on your nipples. He went, okay.
The glitter nipples are just such a wonderful touch, because he's such a classically beautiful masculine face.
He has an incredible face and such a great personality. So I thought, well, and it's a bit of fun. I think it can all get a bit serious. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm sending out a 4-foot wide skirt, a 7-foot long kimono. A glitter nipple's not going to put anybody off, is it?
Yeah, it's not going to be the piece that people really. But I just want to go back a tiny bit, because I just want to hear a little bit about the production of these kimonos and the way that they were made. You say that they must take hours and hours of time. But how involved were you in the production of those pieces?
Well, I'm always quite involved. I work directly with a factory in North London who are incredible. And I know when I take Sally and Atta something, they'll always be, ooh. But it's an ooh of excitement. It's not an ooh of, oh no, we can't do that.
Ooh, yes.
So I've got a collection of kimonos, of course, and I took them one of my uchikake, and we went through it and we looked at how it was made and picked a tiny bit to pull out the stuffing, and so we went through the process of that. And
so
then,
they're stuffed inside?
And then they have an extra stuffing at the hem. And so...
They're quite heavy.
Very heavy. But the way that we did it was we went out and we got those insulating tubes and wrapped them and then put them in bubble wrap so that we've got the form but without this real like dragging weight.
What's inside normally?
It's a kind of like compacted cotton fluff, if that makes any sense. It's a bit like old mattresses.
Right.
So we had to find a way to do that.
To replicate that.
Within the time and our means. So yeah, insulating pipe and bubble wrap.
So the other thing that I wanted to ask you a little bit about is really, well, we have one here.
Yes.
A millinery, these headpieces.
The headpieces.
Talk to me a bit about, because obviously in your references as well, Biedermeier hairs, a big thing. Is that something you were trying to replicate with these?
Yes, it started off looking at these French lace Fontel headpieces. And also these Chinese guardian statues that have these sort of anti-gravity bows. And I wanted to do something that definitely came away from the body. And my friends, Gianluigi and Victoria, said, oh, we want to make something. And they make amazing showpiece jewellery for loads of people in London. And it's like, oh yeah, can we do something? That'd be great. And so we looked at the images and I was like, I really like that. And they're like, yeah, let's do that. I'm like, but it looks really difficult.
Yeah.
And G just sat down, got out some copper and some scissors and went, a bit like this. And I was like, 5 minutes later, like, yes, yeah, like that. That'd be nice.
Exactly. So how did you decide, was this, Julian, who's your stylist, was this his decision of which looks these headpieces would work with? Because I love that it's these three looks, which are sort of they're quite similar. They flow into each other, definitely with the, the movement of the fabrics.
Well, my original idea was, because I kind of like to gild the lily a bit, was to have all three of the crinolines, and they were going to have these big satin embroidered aprons, and they were going to have these headpieces, and they're all going to come out at the end. And you're going to say, no, spread it out, make it feel like a flow. You don't need to save everything for the end. And we kind of didn't know where we were going to put them. Yeah. And it really came when we'd done the looks and we'd cast the show, and we were like, look at these three looks here. Look at these guys' hair. It's going to work really well. Let's put them here. So it was a really last minute choice, but it couldn't have been any better. I was really pleased that they all came together, and they were with these three looks that were quite down in color. And I think they sort of brought just that extra little touch of something a little fantastical to
I think definitely
khakis and browns.
It's interesting as well, the headpieces definitely elevate these, but I'm interested as well in the collaboration you did with Converse, which I think very much, for a lot of critics, have said that it grounded the collection from something that could be seen as just sort of an opulent, slightly sort of, it's very luxurious.
Yes.
But definitely the fact that they're all in Converse gives it this.
It really brought the show together. Shoes is so difficult. So when we were approached by Converse, I thought, this could be really interesting. I mean, Converse it's the universal shoe. And it was really interesting to put like Converse with a ball gown. Yeah. It's like, I'm having my Lily Allen moment.
I was just going to say, did you feel it could be a bit Lily Allen?
But it was, I think it really helped to have that very streetwear element to the show, because I can get a bit fanciful at times. I'm aware of that.
Well, I did wonder if you'd had any criticism for being sort of very opulent, particularly in a time of perhaps austerity.
I don't care.
Good for you.
I mean,
and talk to me about the location. That's something that
when we knew we were going to do a show, it's a really difficult decision because there are benefits to having it in the BFC space, in the, people know where it is, and that your work is shown alongside other people showing in the BFC space. But then there's the other side to that if you have a collection that is very rich in texture and print, that white space can make it feel a lot flatter. So I wanted a location that reflected the richness of the collection. And I knew there were all these guild halls in London and that they had spaces. And I thought, let's go and look. So we did a little tour, we looked around different places. And I mean, I'm so obsessed with the Elizabethans and the Tudors that as
Evidently.
soon as I walked into this room, I was like, it's going to be, it's here, this is it. And it's an amazing
Hall
space.
and-
The Ironmongers Hall, who were fantastic to work with. They'd never had any sort of fashion event before and were so
Really?
excited about it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And every room there is so beautiful. It was really the perfect venue for me. And I hope we can show there again, because I think it really works.
Yeah, I think it definitely reflected a lot of the collection.
Yes.
There's so much I want to talk to you about, but I am conscious of time. But I do want to just ask a little bit about the sort of undergarment side of the collection, particularly the corsets. So talk to me a little bit about these looks, particularly this. I'm very keen on that.
Well, that was my kind of Gautier late 90s moment. Because I mean, when I was starting to get into fashion in like the late 90s, it was like this was the most exciting things that were going on. It was, you know, it was Gautier, it was McQueen, it was Galliano. It was like that joy of a little bit too much. And I think that's, for me, what makes fashion exciting. But this was also my real Elizabethan moment, because this corset is taken directly from a late Elizabethan women's corset. And what's really interesting is the way that it makes the shape of the body like a cone. It doesn't necessarily cinch you in like you imagine a corset would do. And then you have this stomacher coming down that kind of gives almost like a G-string tanga brief look, which I quite like.
It's a very unique shape.
Yes.
But tell me a bit about the decision, because in some of the looks, we're going to talk about nipples, but on some of the looks, the nipples are exposed.
Yes.
And in some, they're half covered and some they're covered. Was that a conscious decision that you made in order to...
Very much so.
Tell me a bit about that.
And the corset should have been up here, but as soon as we put it on, I was like, oh, it's just really hot. It's sexy, so why not? And I think it's actually... This line is a really powerful line when you're making a silhouette, to work up and down from just under the chest. And the silhouette felt so much stronger coming from here, that all of the chest and the shoulder is exposed. And it's so much more powerful. And again, it's referencing that like feeling of masculine width. If we brought the corset a bit higher, it would have made the whole body feel narrower, but actually just dropping it down really spread out the chest, and you get a bit of nipple, so why not?
Just what you need. I think nipple is a perfect place for us to end, even though I'd love to keep talking. But Edward, thank you so much.
Thank
It's been a
you.
real pleasure.